Hey, a client asked, what are the disadvantages of intermittent fasting? What a great topic. This has really kind of swept through the industry. And intermittent fasting means different things to different people. It's supposed to mean something like eating once per day. A lot of people say, well, it's for me, it's eating 2 or 3 times a day, and I would go for that. Um, I've done fasting in the past for different reasons, and even had a course on it in graduate school. And there are some great benefits to even do regular small fasts. But in this age of people experimenting with different types of meal formats, I think for almost everybody, if we just take one meal out of our day, if you're used to eating eight, eat seven. If you're used to eating five, eat four. If you just make your meals a little bit larger, get a little bit more time in between those meals, you're going to spend more time tapping into body fat stores. The meals will be larger, one or two of them at least, so that you feel fuller. I've always maintained, in our new book coming out this month, discusses the types of meals we eat. And I call the biggest meal of the day an anchor meal, because with a full serving of starchy carbs, fibrous carbs, protein, a little fat, that's a meal that you get full on. You can ride out the long period of your day, and instead of saying hunger mount gradually, just getting hungrier and hungrier and hungrier all throughout the day, regardless of your meals, you get a nice big sized anchor meal like that, and you feel better the rest of the day. You just don't get hit with that cumulative hunger. So I like some of the things that intermittent fasting has brought to the industry, to the weight loss culture, but in terms of just eating once or twice a day, it can be very difficult, very unsustainable, and I think you're going to see your metabolism start to dwindle a little bit. There are pros and cons, I will admit, but I've taken people who are eating once or twice a day, and by spreading it out to maybe 3 or 4 times a day, we were able to increase calories substantially because they just needed more food to stimulate metabolism. Also, of course, when you're eating those huge meals, if you're eating once or twice a day, your body can't process that amount of food at all. You just cannot assimilate that. So a large portion gets stored as body fat that you then have to work through. So there's definitely a sweet spot in there where you've got to find where you've got long enough spaces between meals, so you're getting hungry, you're using some body fat, but then meals large enough where you're actually feeling full. So I would say, going back to the exact question of energy expenditure throughout the day, you're going to find that you probably need at least 3 meals a day, probably four. If you're active, I personally find that if I'm not training at all that particular day and I'm focusing on it, I can eat 3 meals a day. Larger meals, spread them out with 5 or 6 hours, and there's going to be a little hunger there. But if I want to do that for some particular fasting type reason, I can do that. On days I train, I need four, sometimes five. So give yourself some flexibility like that, but it's certainly something to try.